Hi, Nina's Apollo here. This is a place to talk about spiritual personality typing. This week on the blog, I'm talking about how couples who fight on vacation can return home happier. Are you like, what is she talking about? Well, let's get into this. But first, what I want to do, I typically sit down and meditate or pull some cards and just settle myself before I do these videos because I think they're important. I want them to come from my heart. But this week I pulled a very interesting card before doing this video. And it said, New Love. And these cards are from Doreen Virtue. They're from the Healing, it's the Healing with the Angels Oracle cards. I love this deck. I've had it for many, many years. And it's angels. So I'm into angels. So what I found so interesting is when I pulled this card, it like recapped the premise of my blog, right? This hair's getting on my nerves. So listen to what this says. This is awesome. Oh, and I've lost the page. Let me see here. Let me flip to it real quick. Oh, here. So it says, this is cool. Changes in your love life will only be painful if you are rigid in your thoughts or behaviors. If you flow with the current of love, you'll find that old parts of your love life wash away. They are rapidly replaced by new aspects that will delight you. Current relationships may end, or they may act as a transition into a new phase of passion and renewed love. Or a new partner may enter your life, inspiring great happiness for you both. I'll put the card deck and links to it in the description box below. But what I found so interesting about this, and I love this phase, I keep on closing the page here. It says, change in your life will only be painful if you are rigid in your thoughts or behaviors. This is all it's talking about is personality typing. It's talking about your traits. So, hopefully, if you're watching this, you are a personality type aficionado, and you know your traits. What I do with these videos is I come from personality typing from a more spiritual perspective. So let's get into your traits and talk about like how this happens for you. Okay, so let me just go through this real quick. I find it very interesting. I just want to look something up real quick here. Yeah. One of the things that I find kind of interesting, because I did some research. I always do some research to look at the logical, practical, external world of what we're constantly being told. And then I layer my opinions and my beliefs on them. So here again, take what you want, leave the rest. But a lot of psychologists and stuff talk about like conflict management, you know. And even those terms, to me, I don't like the energy of the terms. Conflict. Okay. To me, it sounds like you're duking it out. And sometimes that is the thing. But conflict has a very negative connotation to me. It just kind of leads you down a path, I think. I'm going to show you another way. And then management. I got to tell you, I don't want to manage my partner. I have enough to manage in my life without managing my partner. Yes, I might manage myself, but even the word manage, to me, like when you're managing something, you're overseeing it, you're controlling it. I don't want to control myself either. Like, obviously, there's limitations to that, right? Like, I don't mean like I can be out of control and do whatever I want. No, you have to fit in society and so forth and so on. Same thing with your spouse. But you really want to be managing your spouse? I don't. So here, instead of looking at this from a conflict management perspective, why can't we look at it from an observing, witnessing perspective? You're observing your partner. You're observing yourself. And then you're witnessing behaviors from those observations. Yes, I know it's a little bit ethereal, but stay with me. So if you're observing somebody, you start seeing their behaviors. You start looking at, oh, that's what they do. That's how they're reacting. This is kind of stressful for them. And more times than not, we're not seeing that when we're home. Because when we're in our daily lives, we're grinding away. We're just getting it done, right? We're getting it all done. I got to get the kids out. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to get, we're almost like in this transit state. Like, that's not the right word. We're almost in a state of, I don't know, like zombie states. We're so like conditioned to do this, get up, do this, brush your teeth. It's just like this rigid set of things that we're following throughout our day. So it's very hard to sit back and observe in that mode, right? So a lot of us aren't doing that. So that's why I like talking about getting to know yourself so you can have happier vacations with the goal of extending this knowledge into your daily life. That's what the goal is, right? So when you're on vacation, instead of this idea of conflict management, why don't we look at it as observing and witnessing? Why don't we take that fresh perspective with us? It's a totally different way to look at it. I'm just giving you some alternatives, right? And if you're more of a J type, you're like, no, I like the management, but you still have to you still have to witness. You still have to observe. Because if you're not taking in the new information, the information becomes biased. It's old thinking. So you're bringing old thinking into a new experience. So then you no longer have a new experience. You don't have an inspired experience. You're just having the same old fear-based external experiences because you're just dipping back into what you know. And for most of us, we walk around with fear-based personality types. It's just what we've been taught. We've been taught to be fear-based. It's baked into us from day one. So we're trying to change these perceptions, right? So when you're on vacation, I have a couple really cool ideas for you that I think is going to help. Here, I want to get into that. Yeah. So what I'm talking about here is ReSeeing. Oh, we talked about this a little bit, but ReSeeing your personality, your personal reality, especially when this is your love of your life, right? From a very loving perspective, from an outpouring of love and positive energy. So if you're managing conflict, where's that? Do you see the different energy? It's such a different energy. So I kind of want you to embrace this new way of seeing your partner and start witnessing them and start observing them, And it's not about being right, who's right and who's wrong. That is so done. It's not what that's about. Because you're both right and you're both wrong. It just is. It's your personality traits on vacation, right? And so when you get yourself into situations when there's a differing personality type, of course you're gonna want different things. That's inevitable. But if you don't understand your partner or even yourself and what your traits are and how your traits show up and how they influence everything in your life, and yes, travel, then you're witnessing from an old perspective. It's not a fresh perspective. And you're witnessing without understanding. And witnessing without understanding is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Because if you don't understand yourself, you're not going to ever understand anybody else. And the same thing that goes with love. If you don't love yourself, you're never going to be able to love anybody else. So you have to start understanding how your traits, if you don't really understand your traits, they become blocks in your life. They don't become doorways. There's a very different way to look at personality typing. Very, very different. All right. So, I think this is interesting too. Yeah. What I'm laughing at is, once you understand that your traits, I don't know your specific traits because I can't go through all that on a video. You guys would fall asleep, it'd be 15 hours long. But once you understand your traits, you're going to start understanding that there's a light side to your traits, which is divinely inspired. Then there's a dark side to your traits, which is fear-based. Everyone has them. Everyone has those aspects of their traits. We live in a dualistic world, which is fine. There's no shame, there's no blame, there's nothing. It just is what it is. But once you understand that about yourself and really, really understand that your traits do have aspects that have you showing up in the world, which you don't really like about yourself. And some people don't even notice that they're showing up and being self-centered, or they're over-pleasing, or they're being controlling. They're being very fear-based. That's all fear-based stuff. So a lot of times people don't recognize that. But when you travel, it's a different story because you get triggered. I call them travel triggers, right? And something will trip you up, trigger you. Something maybe your spouse says, or something that maybe even, a waiter would say. Maybe they say something, you're like, what? If that's reactions happening to you, that's time for you to pause and witness. Observe and witness the situation. It's really not a time to react. I know it's very, very hard. But if you leave the house before you even travel with a knowing that I'm traveling from the inside out, so I'm going to go within first before I start expressing myself, there's a big difference. And then once you understand that about yourself, you have the grace and compassion to understand that your spouse has the same stuff. We all have the same, your kids have the same stuff, your parents have the same, everyone has the same stuff. Everyone has light side of their traits and a dark side of your traits. But then you become more compassionate because you understand that everyone has this stuff, and what these dark aspects of your trait is really about lessons and blessings, right? So within every lesson or challenge, there's a blessing. And it's all for your soul's evolution, to evolve yourself, to grow and become the best version of yourself you can be. It's really about, tapping into that true self, the truth of who you are. So travel triggers, when something triggers you, that's like you should be thinking, oh man, there's a blessing here somewhere, let me figure it out. Instead of, oh my God, they're doing this again, la 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 la, because that's old thinking stinking. That's not going to change, right? Excuse me, I have a little bit of water. So when those triggers, come up, you should be excited, because this is a time of learning. And if you really, really, really are committed to this, if you're really committed to this, if you really want to learn, if you really want to be the person you're meant to be, you have to commit to this. But this will give you moments of enlightenment. It's going to start taking you to that enlightenment stage. You're like, oh man, I'm getting this. And it really gets exciting, because then it allows your personality type to come from a more loving aspect, the loving aspects, the light aspects of what it is. That's when your higher self, your true self, has an open communication, right? It has an open communication with divine intelligence. So it goes divine intelligence, higher self, true self. Messages are being downloaded, and then the messages and ideas, inspired actions get downloaded into your personality, which is your personal reality. So that's how that expresses in your life. Your soul can't express without your personality type. It's the vehicle it uses to take those inspired ideas, run them through your soul self, your higher self, your true self, right? Through your personality type. That's what causes personal growth and enlightenment. And I'm just going to give you a warning here. No one stays in an enlightened state 24/7. And if somebody says, oh, I'm always enlightened, you should just run the other way, because that's not true. I'm just saying. Take what you want and leave the rest, right? And you got to do what resonates with you, you know. And there's a little exercise. You just put your hand over your heart. And you get quiet and go within. And this feels good. You'll have a peaceful energy. If it doesn't feel good, there's gonna be a little agitation, you know. And the agitation could come from, I'm stirring up some things, but really feel into that and figure out what that is for you. Or it could be like, oh, just, you know, none of this is, and you know, maybe it's just not time for you to hear this stuff, and that's fine too. Everyone's on a different place. You're in a different place, believe me. So, you know, what is all the fighting about? Let's look at that. So what's all the fighting about? So I'll give a little example on the blog. So what's the fighting about? And my hair is driving me crazy today, sorry. So what's the fighting about? You know, sometimes when we fight in our relationships, and I'm gonna give this to like a story. Sometimes we fight in our relationships, it's like your tire blows out. And you know, maybe at this point, there's a big thing that happened in your relationship. Trust was broken. That's probably the biggest one. Things of that nature, you know. You've been cheated on. You were told things that weren't really true. You know, that's trust being broken. For me, trust in a relationship is paramount. Just like trust in God is paramount. You know, the same metaphysical law should apply to your love relationship. So that's a big thing. And that's like the tire goes flat. You know, with no uncertain, there's something that's screwed up in your relationship. So that you know that without a doubt. Then there's this other way where, you know, your tire gets a little pinhole in it. And the air is slowly seeping out. You don't realize it until one day you go out and your tire's flat. And you're like, what happened? Well, that's kind of the same thing that happens in relationships. When we have those little small disruptions, those small arguments, those little arguments, right? But over time, if they're not resolved, and if you don't open yourself up to a conversation about it, that'll break a relationship. It just will. It's hard to go back. If you have years and years and years and years, think of the layers that you've built of communicate. They're blocks. It's blocks of communication. So it's blocks of energy within you. And that's the thing that's going to break a relationship. Sometimes even more than the bigger things. Because the bigger things you're going to discuss right away. These little things you don't. They just like gather dust. You don't really discuss them. So, you know, that's what happens. So that's why I think it's so important that you take the time and recognize these travel triggers when they show up on vacation. So you don't become the statistic of like, oh, they're the, well, no. It doesn't start with somebody else. It starts with yourself. It starts with really knowing your personality type. This is the cool thing about knowing your personality type. Once you start knowing your personality type, it becomes a habit. Which for most people it is now, but it's probably a habit that's fear-based. I want this habit to become love-based. with a crystallized understanding of the love light part of your personality type, you're always going to have lessons and blessings. I like that. Lessons and blessings. Should be a song. Anyway, but you're always going to have that, right? Because it's just how the world works. Because you're going to keep on encountering people that are going to be triggering you, which it's supposed to be that. But I'm telling you, the lessons are quicker. You don't dwell on them as long, and you move on. It's just to elevate what you've already learned till you get to the point where you don't have to deal with it anymore. Right? But there's other lessons around that lesson, I think, that for the most part is what we're here to all learn. You know, we have specific lessons within our soul that we're here to learn. And we're going to keep on learning them until we leave the planet. They evolve. And the cool thing is when we learn these lessons, like I'm working with this beautiful woman who's learning a lesson of severe trauma. And as she goes through this, she's a beautiful soul, very courageous. But as she's going through this, she already sees the light side. She's leaving the shadow. She still's in the shadow, but she's seeing the light energy of that and how she's going to use what she's going through to help others realize that there is a doorway on the other side of a concrete wall. It's really beautiful. It's really, so if you can see that within yourself and not go, oh my God, I can't, you know, it helps you go through things, you know? And that's why I like the idea of travel, because when you're traveling, you can kind of separate yourself from your daily life and really focus on yourself and really go within and really look at yourself and really observe yourself. Really take the time to do that. In my book, if I ever freaking get it edited, I put like good spiritual practices for you, because every personality is different. So every personality needs a little bit of a different spiritual practice. These are just ideas to get you started, but I think it's going to be really helpful for you. So, okay, so I'm going to, because I know I'm going long here. So I have, I put a couple instances on the blog about quarreling, and I don't have to go through all of them, but I'm going to pick out one. Have you ever done this? So, you know, your partner gets up, you know, they're ready to go. They got all their brochures. They're like, let's go. I got a museum's tour scheduled. And then we're going to go shop the shop, and then we're going to have a great lunch. I already made reservations for lunch. And then after lunch, we're going to do we're going to go to the national park and do some forest bathing, just walking in nature, you know. And we're going to go check out some of the trails, right? And so the list goes on, right? And you're sitting there like having breakfast, loving the moment, enjoying your coffee, whatever, you know, biting on your croissant, you know, just like zenning out. Like you're still in your pajamas or whatever you're in, right? And you're just like, what? I'm not doing all that stuff. I'm on vacation, for God's sakes. I want to chill. I do not want to be running my ass all around wherever doing all that stuff. No. Okay. This begins the travel trigger, right? This begins your journey of a travel trigger. So you're like, oh man. So the other person, your spouse, is just like, they're excited. They're like so happy. Everything's scheduled, you know, it makes them happy. They have all this cool stuff planned. They just wanted to share their world with you, what their world looks like, right? And you're like, I'm chilling, man. My world looks like coffee and a croissant. So, you know, it's two different things. So how do you get around that? What happens in that situation? Are you observing and witnessing? You're like, oh man, here it goes again. I'm going to be rushed on vacation. I don't want to do this. And do you just back off and please? Do you let one person dictate what another person's going to do? Or do you talk it through and try to figure out what's going on here? you know? And it really is, you know, if you know your personality type, it shouldn't be that long of a discussion. And if it needs that long of a discussion, this is something you maybe journal about and say, you know, we need to tackle this when we get home. But for right now, I'm looking at let me show you where I'm coming from. And then I really want to hear where you're coming from. And then let's figure this out. Instead of one person bulldozing another person. Because that's not right either. So, yeah. So usually what this is about, obviously, like I said, it's trait differing, excuse me. So, you know, one person's going to want to be more scheduled. They like to have itineraries. They like to have checklists. And you might be a person that's like, I'm going with the flow. I'm going to see what the day brings. I want the day just to introduce itself to me. Again, it's not judging what's right and wrong. It's trying to understand the other person and what brings them joy. You know? And is the trait even coming from light, or is it coming from fear? You know? Because if you have somebody that's like really wants to overschedule the hell out of you and control you the whole vacation, that's an unhealthy trait. It's not only healthy for you, but it's unhealthy for them. Because if they're so controlled, they don't let any moments of newness enter them, which is a big disservice, because then you become self-centered, very authoritarian, becoming like a dictator. Who wants to hang out with that? No one. And you know, and honestly, sometimes people don't realize they're doing it. They're just like, okay, I want to get this going. I have all this mapped out, and, you know, and for them, like, losing that control can be very anxiety provoking. And I did a blog on, might want to go back to that after this, but it's and there's a video on it too about what stresses you on vacation. But that would really stress somebody out that wants to be scheduled. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when it becomes so controlling and dominating that you become overly aggressive with it. You become so self-centered that your way is the right way. We all know that's just a bunch of bullshit. There's no right way or wrong way. It just is, right? So you have to figure this stuff out. And for the person that's like lollygagging and sipping their coffee and they're kind of zenning out, you know, that can also be from a place of fear. Because if you constantly do that, if you constantly just, you know, kind of, what's the right word I'm looking for? But if you constantly stay in that state, there again, you don't push yourself to maybe schedule or do new things because you're so content with what is. But maybe if you expand the what is to a little bit bigger scope, your what is will become more enchanting, right? Because you're right now, you're just coming from a place of what you know. So what you're sitting in front of, you know, and you're not tuned in to what the other person's doing because you're so tuned into your little space. And here again, when you don't tune in to somebody else, you're going to blame them because they want to do everything. Well, yeah, true. You want to do nothing. You just want to sit there and drink your coffee. I mean, that is doing something. But you see, like, you can't just blame them when you're doing your thing and they want to do their thing. So this is where the compassion comes in, and the empathy and understanding that our traits deliver both light-filled and dark-filled aspects of them. So this is where you come in and start compromising. So the compromise here could be, okay, I see that you're still in your pajamas. The museum tour is starting in like 20 minutes. Will you be ready? And if they're saying, no, I don't want to do it. Okay, why don't we do this? I really want to do that. I've scheduled that, and there are some really cool things I want to see in the museum. I'm going to go ahead And why don't I meet you back here and we'll do lunch together? How does that sound? There's a compromise, right? Can you compromise on that? Can you start seeing, like, this person really is comfortable sitting there doing their thing and having their coffee. And the person that's having their coffee is like saying, I don't want to do that, but that's cool if they want to do that. But don't be sitting there doing the guilt thing either. Well, I really want, and later I don't want to hear like, I really wanted to go, but you were rushing me, so I couldn't get ready. Choices. You have your choices. And if you really do want to go later. Do it on your own time. But see that blame thing when it comes back, and then there's that guilt thing. No. And the person that wants to go, they got to be cool with going by themselves and not having that experience with their partner. But here again, you should be so in love with yourself and so good about being in the company of yourself, that stuff shouldn't matter as much. We're led to believe that our spouses hold the keys to everything for us. That's not true. That is not true. It doesn't work like that. You hold the key to you. You hold the key to your happiness. You hold the key to your personal growth. You hold the key to creating your own moments. And who knows who you're going to meet at the museum? And then your partner's like, I'm going to enjoy a second cup of coffee, and I might even have another croissant. You're both happy. But we tend not to do that. We tend to argue over it and blame each other and make it into a situation and blah, blah, blah. But I'm telling you, if you don't take time for these small moments on vacations, these travel triggers that come up, they do add up. And when too many pass, and you don't discuss them, that can break up a relationship. And wouldn't it be fun when you return home, you kind of realize that about your spouse? And so Saturday mornings for them could become more leisurely while you're like doing your thing. You're like, you know what? I know he doesn't really like, or she doesn't really like doing this. So I'm going to take the time while they're enjoying an extended coffee morning. I'm going to go piddle around and do some stuff. Maybe go to a estate sale, go to the garden shop, or I don't know, do whatever. Do whatever it is. And so you use that lesson and you place it into your daily life. So that's how you can bring this happiness home. You unpacking your personality type. Unpack that. Unpack the lessons that you've learned. Does that make sense? I know, I go on. And I'm an ENTP, so my thinking is like, wee. And plus I have I have an introverted thinking, which is very contextual. It's very intuitive. So it's very right brain, like the rest of my personality. So, if I'm showing up like right side lopsided, it's because it's where all my traits are kind of located on that right side of me. I do have one that's not. So anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoy making these videos. I love talking about personality typing with a spiritual understanding. I think it really is the new paradigm in typology. I think we have to have a spiritual understanding, a spiritual knowing that leads our personality type. As I said before, your soul cannot express itself without your personality. And if your personality is in fear, soul is coming from your soul and your true self comes from a much higher perspective, much higher energy. It's closer to the God energy. So yeah, so you have to know that love energy can't and does not communicate with fear energy. They're not on the same energy level, so they can't compete. They can't compete. Sorry, I don't know where the hell that came from. Does that make sense? Okay, guys. I really, really, really love doing these. I hope you're enjoying them. New love. I don't know. Let me know how that manifests for you. That'd be really cool, huh? New love. And you know what? It could be actually just a new love and appreciation for yourself. It doesn't always have to be an external thing. could be a new love and a new appreciation for yourself. And I wish that for all of you all. Thank you for being here. If you like this, please like it. Hit the like button. I know all these things. I feel like I'm in third grade. Like the like button and subscribe and share. Do you feel like you're in third grade? Like sometimes all this stuff is just like, woo. But it is what it is right now. And I'm here on Earth. I got to deal with it. do what it is. But, you know, I'm an eccentric Aquarian with very unconventional thinking. But welcome to my messy world. And I appreciate y'all being here. And have a great week. Let me know. Hey, and if you want, I do travel sessions, and I can do one for couples, which would be really fun for me. It's just fun. It's fun to figure out who you are, you know, and how you're going to show up in the travel situation, what your stress hacks are, where your triggers are going to be. And once you all start recognize that before you travel, that's going to be so much fun. You're like, oh, honey, there's one of your triggers. It's showing up, and then they can do the same thing to you, right? You know, and I do recommend that if you want to start doing this, do it on a small level, you know, like do a backyard vacation, like travel in your own backyard to start. So, because some of these things that come up and they can be really hard. Like, I know I'm making them like, this is just a conversation, but some of the things are hard. Some of these things I'm discussing, they're issues that you have to go through, and they're deeply embedded. They're baked into you. They're going to take some time to unravel. That's why it's nice to do it on vacation too, because you can kind of sit with it. You can kind of start observing and witnessing that and really start looking at it from a different perspective than being in your daily life when everything's like so pretty much unconscious, to be honest with you. I want you to be conscious about this stuff. All right, guys. Do like, subscribe, and share. And if you want to book a session, you know, just get on my schedule. It'd be fun to do some couple sessions, though. It really would be fun. Love you guys. Travel safe. Have a good time. Love each other. Learn about each other. Most importantly, learn about yourself. All for now. See you next week.